We're all waiting with bated breath to find out if Gina Carano's lawsuit against the Walt Disney Company is going to go to discovery. And the judge in this case has made indications that she's not inclined to dismiss the lawsuit altogether. Let's talk about what that means on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is Mr. VashSky. Vash, are you ready to talk about the law?
I am the law! No, yes, very much so wanting to talk about this case because, it has implications for not just Gina Carano, but maybe others who have been wronged by not just the Walt Disney Company, but others in Hollywood.
It's a very fascinating thing, this case in particular, because it might be tried differently if it were done in a different venue here. If this wasn't the state of California, I don't know that this would play in the same way that it would because of some laws that are meant to protect communists. It might be protecting someone that they didn't intend to protect when they wrote those laws on the books. Anyways, before we get too deep into that, let's talk about this story from The Hollywood Reporter, Mandalorian firing lawsuit, how Gina Carano's team and Disney are battling in court. At a Wednesday hearing, a judge expressed skepticism that the Carano's lawsuit, the Caranos, as if there's more than one of them, at that Carano's lawsuit should be tossed before discovery is allowed to take place. This by Winston Cho. There she is, Gina Carano, playing Cara Dune. She's got a little, looks like a little Rebel Alliance tattoo right there. A federal judge has signaled that Gina Carano's lawsuit against Disney and Lucasfilm and Huckleberry Entertainment as well, by the way, over her termination from The Mandalorian will be allowed to proceed as the court considers whether the First Amendment allows private companies to sever ties with employees who publicly clash with their values. U.S. District Judge Sherilyn Peace Garnett on Wednesday pushed back on arguments from Disney lawyer Daniel Petrocelli. We just talked about him in another video, who argued that the lawsuit should be dismissed because the company has the right not to associate with a high-profile performer on a high-profile show who's imbuing the Star Wars series with views it disagrees with that could turn fans away from the show. Vash, do you want to give it a little history on Daniel Petrocelli real quick?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely can right here. You will remember that Petrocelli has been attached to many a thing here. You can see right here, this is from Variety. Disney lawyer Daniel Petrocelli calls Black Widow lawsuit an orchestrated PR campaign. Now, you remember when Scarlett Johansson felt that she was aggrieved by the Walt Disney Company for having her movie Black Widow provided to the streaming platform and to theatrical distribution simultaneously. And obviously that cut into her royalties, and they should have handled that before. And obviously she felt that the Walt Disney Company was getting one over on her. But Daniel Petrocelli didn't actually think so. Well, obviously they settled later on, and I guess Scarlett Johansson's going to be doing work for the company in some capacity. I believe she's doing the Tower of Terror movie, if I'm not mistaken, right there. So
yeah, we'll have to see if that comes to fruition, by the way. Disney does need another franchise. And by the way, having Scarlett Johansson as a lead actress on a production right now, that's the kind of thing that Disney needs in their behalf. This was a moment, by the way, when it sounded like Bob Chapek messed something up here. It was indicated that Bob Chapek taking Black Widow and releasing it as a premiere on Disney Plus, and it was during the pandemic and all this, and Disney came after her for the fact that it was a callous move done during the pandemic, not aware of everyone's trepidations about COVID. They went after her in a way that I don't think was appropriate if you want to continue to have a relationship with an actress. This is something where I do think Bob Chapek and Bob Iger, and according to reports, they both felt that the other person should have been the one to formulate the messaging around this. Bob Iger saying it should have been Chapek saying that they thought they should have been on the same page on it. It was definitely a misstep on Chapek's part, but at the same time, Bob Iger was still a critical component at the company at the time, despite the fact that it might have been one of the first indications that Iger was going to be throwing Bob Chapek under the bus.
And that wasn't the only time that would actually happen right here. You'll remember what happened during, the RCID mishap. And now we have the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, largely because of the missteps by Bob Chapek and maybe even perhaps Bob Iger in that whole thing right there. Well, Disney obviously wanted to go ahead and sue to get those privileges back. You'll remember that big First Amendment lawsuit that they had. And at first it was thrown out, and then it was actually... Disney appealed it at a certain point. But then if you look at that lawsuit, well, guess who's right on there? Is that Daniel Petrocelli on that lawsuit? I believe it is. And well, we know what happened to that case as well recently. Disney has decided to dismiss on their own behalf right there. So we've seen Petrocelli's name attached to a lot of these lawsuits. They haven't necessarily gone in Disney's direction. And now we have this Gina Carano lawsuit, which I guess, unsurprisingly, if looking at the track record, is not going in their favor either.
So in saying this, Petrocelli seems to be the guy that they go to for full-throated defenses of the Walt Disney Company that maybe go a little too far, and and there's a history here of the Walt Disney Company later having to back away, whether it's through settlement, whether it's through litigation and loss. I think that this is something where, I don't want to say that it's the team as opposed to the circumstance that gets to decide these things. But Petrocelli here is a consistent thread in some of the cases that we've seen not go as well as Disney's initial defenses would indicate. That being said, over here, Gina Carano did get on social media and say some things that her coworkers at Lucasfilm tried to take her to task for, try to put her through a struggle session there, and then eventually fired her. Also under Bob Chapek at the time, Lucasfilm issued a statement calling her something to the effect of reprehensible, horrible, all of those things that you would say if you were firing someone. They've tried to say that they weren't actually firing her, except the lawsuit from Gina Carano would also indicate that maybe she had been promised some things that were then taken away from her after those comments were made. By the way, this is around the period when Gina Carano was fired here. The stock price was around 200. And if we look to the one day right here, $99.88, we're at right about half what it was when she was let go. So I'm not saying that she is the reason the stock price is down, but this might have been one of those issues that caused a lot of people who were watching I'm going to say in the top 3 characters on the top show on Disney Plus at the time, before everyone discovered Bluey, that letting that actress go for political reasons might be attached to why people's perceptions of the Walt Disney Company have maybe become a little less favored. Let's see if we can find the quote here from Judge Sherilyn Peace Garnett. By the way, love that middle name. I'm not convinced there are no disputed facts, Judge Garnett responded. She pointed to allegations that Carano was terminated to deflect attention from Disney's contentious business decisions at the time, including the company's contract dispute with Scarlett Johansson and criticism of Florida's parental rights and education law. Again, tying this back to Daniel Petrocelli. The lawsuit revolves around allegations from Carano that she was wrongfully terminated and discriminated against when she was booted from the series for voicing right-wing opinions. Interesting. I don't think that many of these were actually right-wing opinions. They were just maybe anti-corporate rhetoric at the time on social media. The former MMA fighter appeared on the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. She wasn't under contract to appear on the 3rd season or any other Disney production, according to court filings. Other than her own court filings, of course. Carano sued after Lucasfilm in 2021 announced that she wouldn't be returning to the series. Nothing she said was on show or on set, Carano's lawyer said at the defense table in the courtroom. That may not matter, at least according to Disney. The company claimed there are broad liberties afforded to private speakers in what viewpoints they choose or don't choose to express. This entire thing here is very, very widespread here. The messenger is part of the message, Petrocelli said. He posited, imagining she made comments that she hates a certain sect of people or that there was no atrocity here. This is such a stretch, and it's such a vile thing to say in court. I get it. He's arguing from the extremes. So here's the thing. As of the time that we're recording this, the judge has not yet ruled. It's Friday. Maybe she will rule. There's actually been a lot of back and forth about whether or not the judge has ruled, because the wording here was a little bit vague. She was giving an opinion, not necessarily an official ruling here. Vash, do you have anything you want to throw in here?
It's a developing case, and it looks like the judge is kind of weighing her options here and saying, wait a minute, hang on here. This isn't as cut and dry as Disney is making it seem. I think there is something here, and we might have to go to litigation to actually find this out. And I think that's the appropriate step to take here. I understand. I get it. Maybe she wasn't under a formal contract where she signed a dotted line kind of thing. But, when you have emails going back and forth, when you have certain statements made to lead someone that their career's on the right track, and then all of a sudden have that stripped out of it for the reasons that you said in the statement that you made, well, then I think this is obviously something that should be litigated, and I believe it is.
I think you're right. And the question here then becomes, is this going to be dismissed? I don't think it's going to be dismissed. I think it's going to be set to go to trial. And at that moment, I wouldn't be surprised if the Walt Disney Company starts producing large amounts of money and waving them in front of Gina Carano's face to try to see if this is going to go away. Personally, I would love to see this go to Discovery, because I would like to see, especially Lucasfilm right now, because Lucasfilm has had such an antagonistic relationship with its fan base, that I would like for some sunlight to be spread there. But the other thing is that I would like for Gina Carano to see some justice, some actual justice here. On a completely separate note, this is kind of trivial when it comes down to it. I would like to see The Mandalorian, how it was supposed to be seen, with Gina Carano's character of Cara Dune in it. I would like to see all of these things repaired. I don't know what happens over the next little while, but I do want to throw this to our commenters. How would you like to see this resolved? Within reason, and maybe some unreasonable views in there. Try to keep them clean in the comment section down below. Like this video, though, if you appreciated this commentary here, if you found it helpful in any way. You can even dislike this video, and I think it still works in helping engagement on the channel. There's a little YouTube secret for you. And of course, consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.